Joining me now is Kelly Senecal. He is the owner and vice president of Convergent Science. So thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start off with some big questions. What do you see as the biggest challenge the industry faces in reaching mass adoption of low carbon vehicles in the future?
That's a great question. I think probably the biggest challenge is doing an honest assessment of what it means to be low carbon, right? So we tend to focus mostly on the tailpipe. But when you actually look at driving a vehicle holistically in these different vehicle types, you really have to do something like a life cycle analysis to look at the various effects of electricity and producing the car and things like that. So the biggest challenge may actually be, having a fair assessment of how much carbon these cars are actually producing.
So coming off of that, in the early auto designs, we saw a lot of diversification of the powertrain and the propulsion options. Do you foresee that diversification happening with this, or as they figure out kind of what the definition is?
Yeah, I think I definitely see the diversification, but I think it should be intentional because in certain areas in the world, even certain areas in the US, one particular vehicle technology, say an EV or like a hybrid, may make sense in different states or different countries. So I think that the diversification will be there, but I think it should be intentional diversification. Let's put the best solution, where it fits.
And of course, the consumers play a role in this. So
Right.
What are your thoughts about the consumer acceptance of this type of technology and the impact of EV moving forward?
That's a great question. I think, you have kind of two camps. You have the camp of folks that will accept anything just to drive an EV, and if it takes them a while to charge, they'll be okay with that, or at least, they'll live through it. And then you do have the people that they don't want less convenience than what they have now. So if they could charge the vehicle as fast as they could fill up a gas tank, they'd probably be fine. And if we had the infrastructure in place where you had a charger everywhere you have a gas pump, they'd probably be fine. But there's a lot in this country and in the world that they don't want to have to make those convenience sacrifices. I think that's a big challenge for EVs. I think eventually we'll get there with the technology, but right now it's a huge challenge.
So a lot of times people are owning their car for about 12 years now.
Yeah.
So that does give you some time, but what impact does that have on the EV market?
It's just as important to figure out what to do with the existing fleet than what we do with new vehicles. And so we really need to focus more on things like renewable fuels and alternative fuels, because we can use the current infrastructure to fuel the current fleet with net zero CO2 emissions. So I think that's a really important part of the entire kind of decarbonization plan because those cars are going to be on the road for a long time.
And when you talk about the decarbonization plan, you do need to attract some of the best and brightest talent to the industry to work on this. How do you do that to help get society to net zero?
We want to keep the diversity in the powertrain options. We don't want to shut anybody out and say we're not doing combustion anymore, we're just doing EVs, because now you lose that talent that could be coming and helping you improve your combustion engines. So I think as long as we keep the message of a diverse portfolio of solutions, sustainable future, I think that's going to go a long way to attracting the best talent.
And are there other solutions to get to low carbon emissions besides EV, like pushing people toward ride sharing or another avenue?
Public transportation is a great approach. It doesn't work for everybody and it doesn't work everywhere, but when it works, I think we should take advantage of it. In cities, I think active transportation, active mobility, biking and things like that is a good option, but again, not everybody can do that or wants to do that. Possibly some hydrogen. And also EVs kind of collectively, because just picking one of these and going full bore in that direction could lead to unintended consequences and could lead to problems in the future. So we need to kind of keep our options open.
A lot to think about.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, Kelly Senecal of Convergent Science, thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.